Hi, I'm Joey Lott, and in this video today I want to talk to you about irritability. And the reason is simple. It's just that I noticed this morning that I was feeling irritable, which is a fairly common experience for me. And I just had the thought, well, this might be a subject worth talking about, because I think what happens a lot of the time is that we get this idea that irritability is not allowed. This is a common theme in my videos and what I talk about, right? Things not being allowed. And it's natural because irritability is not a particularly pleasant experience. But what I've found, both for myself in my own experience and also just by talking with people about this, is that when we have these sorts of experiences like irritability and we believe somehow, not necessarily as a conscious thought, but somehow we believe that this is not allowed, what we tend to do is we create resistance. And so we set about trying to find strategies to get rid of the experience. Or we may conceptualize that in different ways. Maybe it's not getting rid of, maybe we want to get to a more desirable state. We want to work on ourselves. We want to feel better. But however it is that we conceptualize it, the actual thing that's happening is the same, which is that there's this resistance that's being generated. And if you take a look, you'll see, of course, I mean, even logically, what we're talking about is my experience, right? It's my experience of irritability, and then there's a resistance to it. So there's this sense here of separation. There's the experience of irritability, and then there's somebody or someone who is resisting it, or that's what I'm saying is that's the sense. And we, again, may not be consciously aware of this, but you can see if you just start to take a look that there is this sense of separation, this inner antagonism that we walk around with, because in the case of irritability, irritability is not allowed. It shouldn't be happening. Now again, irritability, often quite unpleasant. You know, in my case, I had agreed to do the dishes this morning, and the dishes from last night, and I had forgotten about that when I got up in the morning, and my kids were doing their thing, which usually is loud. And I had other things that I wanted to be doing, and so there's this irritability. But the sense that this irritability shouldn't be happening is a whole other unnecessary piece. And I think, you know, certainly for me, for the longest time, you know, I had all these experiences, as I still do today, but I had all these experiences that I thought, these experiences are a problem. I shouldn't be having these experiences. And there was a lot of that was depression, anger, anxiety, and irritability, boredom. There were lots of them, but irritability was one. And the sense was, I'm not acceptable. This experience is not acceptable. I'm not acceptable because I'm having this experience. I shouldn't be having this experience. This is wrong. So now, in addition to the irritability, which I don't want, I now also have this shame. I shouldn't be irritable. That's not what good people do. Good people aren't irritable. So then I found stories that supported this belief, right? I read autobiography of a yogi, which to this day, I honestly don't remember exactly what it said. I mean, there were a lot of very fantastic stories in it, but what it didn't matter what it said, because what I got out of it was a confirmation of my story, which is I shouldn't be this way. Good people, spiritual people, enlightened people, they're not like this. They're not irritable. And there was one particular story I remember. It was this guy whose name I don't recall, but he was secretly enlightened, and his wife. This is like every macho man's fantasy. His wife didn't know, but one evening she woke up, and she looked over and she saw he was sitting there in meditation, and all of these angels had come to be near him because he was so enlightened. The angels wanted to be near him, and she recognized it. She said, "Oh, I feel like such a fool. I didn't know." But you see that there's this this humility there. There's a person who's not irritable. He's so not irritable. He put up with all of this stuff. Didn't complain. Here I am. I get irritable just because I've got to do some dishes, and because kids are being kids. So I'm no good. You see. And there were many. I just looked for these stories of all of these people who were, in my view, a confirmation of my story, which is that good people, enlightened people, spiritual people, righteous people are not irritable. I'm irritable, therefore there's something wrong with me. And I better figure that out. But meanwhile, I better hide this in shame. I don't want other people to know how irritable I am. Of course they knew. But I find it's very useful just to take a look. What is it about this experience that's not allowed? Why is it not allowed? And the only way to really find out, to really inquire into that, this is not just a mental activity. This is actually a felt, embodied exploration. That's the only way I know that it's possible to actually investigate it. You have to allow that experience fully, because otherwise, at least my experience is, how do I know really what irritability is? I get just a sort of a sense of it, and then I'm off and running. I'm trying to get rid of it. I'm trying to avoid it. So how can I really know what it is unless I'm willing to allow it completely? Only when I'm willing to allow it completely can I then make a really informed, educated decision about this. Is it allowed? Should it be allowed or not? Is it good or bad? Is it spiritual or unspiritual? Is it righteous or wicked? And so I have to actually allow it. And that, of course, is the last thing I wanted to do. I don't want to allow it. This is what I think is going to be a fate worse than death. I won't allow this. But in my particular case, fortunately, I didn't have much choice after a while. It was so miserable. I became so exhausted, so sick, that I just didn't have a choice. Now, I know some people hear that and they say, now I know the answer. The answer is I've got to hit rock bottom. I've got to become desperately ill so that I have no choice. But I don't think that that's true. I think we're already there. Everybody is already there. At least if you're watching this video, which, I mean, come on, it's not, you don't watch it for entertainment value. So if you're watching this video, you're already there. And it's already possible right now to just allow for the fullness of that experience without any guarding against it. You know, because if you just imagine for a moment that you know, you've got some neighbor who you've had a problem with, and you finally, you know, you've been feuding for years, and finally you decide, you know, enough is enough. I think what I need to do is invite my neighbor over, and we're going to have coffee or tea and just start to make peace. But if you invite your neighbor over and then you're on guard the whole time, it isn't, you know, it's not conducive to the kind of friendly peacemaking atmosphere that's necessary. So there has to be a letting down of the guard. There has to be a vulnerability if you're going to really allow this irritability completely. And I can just tell you from my own experience, of course, that the desire is always going to kind of come in through the back door. It's going to be whispering in your ear, yeah, but this is how we're going to get rid of it. Right? I'm going to allow it fully, but then that's how I'm going to get rid of it. That's what we hope. And I don't know that there's any way around that, but I'll just give you a heads up. At least my experience is that I've never gotten rid of irritability. I mean, like I said, I was very irritable this morning. It's a very common experience for me. Irritability happens. Wouldn't it be nice if there was no irritability? Who's to say? Maybe it wouldn't be so nice, but that sure is the fantasy, right? But who cares about the fantasy, because what we've got is what actually happens. And in my experience, what actually happens is irritability. So rather than fighting with that and saying, you shouldn't be here, you shouldn't be happening, I'm no good, I shouldn't have this experience, this means something bad about me, I'm a failure. Rather than having my guard up and being on the defensive and trying to get rid of this experience of irritability, how about instead I'm just going to continually let go? And I'll just notice every time that there's a guarding against it. Now this can sound like it's a kind of vigilance, which is not my experience, because it's not a vigilance, it's just an awareness. Because a vigilance, again, is like you have to, you're like it matters. Like there's something on the line here. I've got to be watchful. I have to be vigilant. And that's still because then there's this tension, right? It's like you've invited the neighbor over, but you're watching your neighbor's every move. Don't put the cup there. You didn't put it on the coaster. Look at you. You're making a mess of things. You know, I mean, you're just making it very uncomfortable for everybody. So then you can't have peace. So in my experience, it's a much easier thing than that. I say easier, I mean there's more ease involved. Not that it's always easy, but there's more ease involved. So it's really about just noticing where there's unnecessary effort and just letting that go. And of course, it is a process because it's going to be uncomfortable. We're conditioned to avoid that discomfort. So you have to ease into it. At least that's my experience. I was always looking for the quick fix. I wanted it to happen overnight, but it just doesn't seem to work that way. And this is, I think, also another important point, which is I was always looking to feel better, which is natural. but it's not a reliable guide. I think I've talked about this in another video, right? That quick fix will help to feel better based on my understanding of what better is, but over the long haul, I can start to see the pattern, and that's not really better. So this process is also about a reorientation in discovering what better actually is. And it starts by just recognizing I'm not sure what better really is. Now, all I can say is that what I thought better was turns out not to be so great. So I've got to be willing to let go of that. So I'll just conclude this video by saying that the desire to get rid of irritability it still can happen, and it's allowed too. But whatever it is that's happening, it's just possible to notice where there's resistance and to let go of that resistance. And I know this is a bit paradoxical, but nonetheless, it's not about becoming vigilant to the resistance and making resistance bad so that now resistance is your enemy and you have to get rid of resistance. But it is about a gentle approach. I often talk about a softening. It's just about recognizing those impulses for what they are. They're just there, just saying, hey, check it out. And you check it out, and then nothing else needs to be done unless it does. You know, sometimes you check it out and there is a problem. Sometimes you check it out and there's a fire burning the house down. So it's appropriate to take action. But most of the time, there's just a little sense, hey, check it out. And you check it out. Yeah, there's irritability. Okay. It's not the house burning down. It's just irritability. There's irritability because I have preferences that aren't being met. Okay. That's life. But the irritability isn't wrong. The irritability is just that little signal just saying, hey, check it out. Maybe there's a problem. You check it out. Nope, no problem. Okay. But it does require learning how to allow that experience of irritability. Because somewhat ironically, the more there's an investment in the resistance to it, the more there's an investment in the belief that it shouldn't be allowed and that it means something that it doesn't turn out to mean. Things like, there's something wrong with me, I'm unacceptable, I'm bad, I'm shameful, this experience is shameful, this experience isn't allowed. When there's an investment in that belief, then of course we'll say that's a one form of suffering, and it's a unnecessary form of suffering. So that's all. Neither is that bad, but you just have the opportunity to check it out, to let it go. So I hope this video has been useful, interesting. If you have enjoyed this, then please subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching it on Facebook, then like my page. And in any case, please do visit my website, joeylott.com. And as I'm recording this, I presently have a free 5-day introductory course to what I call radical self-acceptance. And I invite you to sign up and learn more for that. I'll see you in the next video, which will likely be tomorrow. Bye for now.